You know how people always say weddings bring families closer? For me, it was the opposite. That day showed me just how far I truly was from being part of mine. I walked into the venue with a gift bag in one hand and hope in the other, convinced that maybe, just maybe, this time I'd feel included. The place was beautiful, like something out of a magazine spread. Tall glass doors framed with white roses, soft music drifting from inside, and a line of ushers greeting guests with practiced smiles. Everyone seemed to know where to go. Everyone but me. When I gave my name to the usher, he paused. His polite grin faltered just for a second, then returned with that professional smoothness people use when they don't want to explain something. "Ah yes," he said, checking the chart again. "You'll be right this way." I followed him, expecting a seat with my relatives, maybe near the middle rows. Instead, he guided me past the decorated chairs, past the archway wrapped in twinkle lights, and straight through a side door that led to a narrow hallway. The hallway smelled faintly of cleaning supplies and stale air. A single folding chair sat against the wall, half hidden by a cart of stacked trays. The usher gestured toward it like he was presenting me with front-row tickets. "Here you are, sir," he said softly. I blinked. This can't be right. My sister's the bride. The usher's smile tightened. These were the instructions given to me. "I'm sorry." For a moment, I just stood there, gripping the handle of the gift bag so hard it crumpled. Through the doorway, I could see rows of people settling into cushioned chairs, laughing and greeting one another like they were at the happiest reunion of their lives. I caught a glimpse of my parents in the second row, my aunts and uncles fanning themselves, cousins whispering excitedly. Not one empty chair in sight. I lowered myself into the folding chair, the metal legs wobbling slightly beneath me. From where I sat, I couldn't see the altar. Couldn't see my sister walk down the aisle. All I could see were the backs of servers hustling trays of glasses into the reception hall. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my mom. "Don't cause a scene. We'll talk later. Just sit tight. Sit tight." As if I were some child being punished in the hallway outside class. My chest burned, and I forced myself to take a slow breath. I told myself it was fine, that maybe this was some kind of mistake that would be fixed any minute. But deep down, I already knew the truth. The music swelled inside, muffled by the door that separated me from everyone else. Guests rose to their feet, and even though I couldn't see it, I knew my sister was walking down the aisle. The thought of missing that moment, the kind of moment families treasure forever, hit me like a stone to the chest. I leaned slightly to the side, craning my neck to catch a glimpse through the door's small window. All I saw was the blur of white fabric moving past and the flash of camera phones rising in unison. The sound of clapping and cheers poured out like a celebration I wasn't invited to join. I wasn't just seated in the hallway. I was erased. As I sat there, people brushed past me on their way to the bathrooms or the kitchen. A couple of servers whispered, glancing at me like I'd wandered into the wrong place. One finally stopped and asked, "Are you with the wedding?" "Yes," I answered quickly, a sharpness in my voice I hadn't meant. "Oh," she muttered, clearly unconvinced, before hurrying away. Minutes passed like hours. The ceremony continued on the other side of the wall while I stared at chipped paint and scuffed floors. At one point, laughter erupted inside. Loud, joyful, the kind of laughter that made the walls vibrate. And me. I was sitting on a squeaky metal chair beside a stack of cleaning supplies. When the doors finally opened, guests poured out in groups, their faces flushed with joy. A few brushed by me without a second glance. But one cousin spotted me and froze mid-step. What are you doing here?" he asked, eyes darting to my chair. I forced a smile. This is my seat. He let out a short laugh, like I was joking. But when I didn't laugh with him, his smile faltered. Oh, wow. That's something. He didn't know what else to say, so he adjusted his tie and disappeared into the reception hall, leaving me exactly where I'd been. I pulled out my phone again, fingers shaking. Another text came in, this time from my sister, the bride herself. Please don't make this about you. Today is my day. I stared at the words until they blurred. She hadn't even noticed I wasn't inside the ceremony. Or worse, she had noticed, and she didn't care. My jaw tightened. The hallway was no accident. The reception hall was a world apart from the gray hallway I'd been shoved into. Inside, everything glittered: white tablecloths, crystal glasses, fairy lights strung across the ceiling like stars. Music played loud and sweet, people clinked glasses, waiters floated by with trays of champagne. And me. I was still in the hallway, holding a gift bag that now felt more like a punchline than a present. Eventually, one of the ushers returned. "You can join the reception now," he said, his voice flat, like he was reciting orders. I stood up, brushed off my suit, and followed him in. For a brief second, I thought maybe they'd finally realized how cruel it was to seat me outside. But no. The usher led me past the beautifully arranged tables, each one covered with name cards and fresh flowers, laughter spilling from every group. Then he stopped at the very back of the room, near the swinging doors to the kitchen. There it was again, a single folding chair, this one placed right next to a rolling cart stacked with dirty dishes. "This is your spot," he said. I looked around. Just feet away, servers rushed in and out of the kitchen, carrying trays. Every time the door swung open, the clang of pots and the hiss of steam drowned out the music. My seat was literally in the service zone, half blocking the staff's path. I swallowed hard. "There must be some mistake," I told him. He glanced at his clipboard. "No mistake. This is where your name was placed." I wanted to protest, to demand a real seat at an actual table. But as I looked across the room, I caught sight of my parents at a table near the center. My mom was laughing, raising her glass with Brooke's parents. My dad was telling some story to relatives, gesturing with his hands. Not once did either of them look in my direction. I lowered myself into the chair. The metal legs scraped against the floor, loud enough that a few people turned to look. Some smiled politely, others quickly looked away. Nobody said a word. The DJ's voice boomed, "Let's give a big hand for our newlyweds." The crowd erupted into cheers. My sister and her husband entered the room, smiling and radiant, as cameras flashed. I clapped too, though from my angle, all I could see was the kitchen door slamming open and shut. For a second, I almost convinced myself it didn't matter, that being here at all was enough. But then my sister's eyes met mine across the room. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She simply looked at me, then turned away like I was a stranger. And that's when it hit me, this wasn't about space, or some mistake on a seating chart. This was deliberate. The toasts began, and with each one, the distance between me and the rest of them grew heavier. The maid of honor stood first, raising her glass. "To my best friend, my sister in every way but blood. You're the most beautiful bride I've ever seen." The room roared with approval. I tried to clap, but my hands felt heavy, wooden. Next, my father stood, clearing his throat dramatically before launching into a speech about how proud he was. "Today, we welcome a new son into our family. We couldn't be happier." Laughter, applause, nods all around. Not a single word that even acknowledged I existed, sitting right there in the shadows. I shifted in my chair, the back digging into my spine. A waiter wheeled the dirty dish cart past me, muttering a quick, "sorry," when a plate nearly slid onto my lap. My champagne glass sat untouched. Nobody had poured me any. When the groom's parents spoke, the crowd leaned forward with warm smiles. "To love, to laughter, to family," the groom's mother said. The word family stuck in my chest like a splinter. And then, just as the DJ encouraged everyone to raise their glasses, my brother-in-law clinked his with a fork and added, "To the people who matter most, the ones sitting right here with us tonight." Everyone cheered. Glasses clinked. Chairs scraped. Except mine. I sat frozen, my glass still empty, heat crawling up my neck. My sister was laughing, her arm hooked around her new husband's, but her eyes didn't even flicker toward me. Not once. I thought about leaving right then, just standing up, walking out, and never looking back. But before I could move, my phone buzzed again. Another message from my mom. "Please don't embarrass us. Just sit quietly until dinner is over." Embarrass them. That's what they thought of me. Like I was some unruly child about to throw a tantrum, not a grown man sitting alone beside a stack of dirty dishes on the night his sister started her new life. I clenched my fists in my lap. For the first time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt disposable. Dinner arrived in waves, silver trays carried out by servers who rushed past me like I wasn't even there. The smell of roasted chicken, garlic butter, and warm bread filled the air, and my stomach tightened with every passing plate. I waited, telling myself that eventually, someone would notice I hadn't been served. But course after course landed on the tables around me. Salads with balsamic drizzle, steaming entrees, glasses of wine poured with steady hands. My spot. Still empty. Finally, I flagged down a waiter. "Excuse me, can I get a plate too?" He blinked at me, confused. "Are you with the wedding party?" "Yes. The bride's my sister." His eyebrows rose slightly, like he didn't believe me, but after a pause he said, "I'll check." He disappeared into the kitchen. 10 minutes later, he returned with a small plate of food balanced awkwardly on his arm. No silverware, no wine, just lukewarm chicken and mashed potatoes dropped onto the corner of the cart beside me. "Sorry," he muttered before hurrying off. I ate in silence with a plastic fork I pulled from a napkin dispenser. From across the room, I could see my family laughing between bites, clinking glasses, leaning close to share stories. My sister and her husband fed each other bites of cake, cameras flashing from every direction. The photographer didn't even bother angling toward the back corner where I sat. Then came the photos. The DJ called out, "Family pictures with the bride and groom." Chairs scraped back, people rushed forward, laughter rising. My mom waved everyone into place like a director on a movie set. I stood up, straightened my jacket, and started walking toward them. Maybe this, finally, was my moment to be included. But as I approached, my brother-in-law glanced at me, then leaned toward my sister. She whispered something back, and in unison, they both looked at me with the same polite, dismissive smile. "Sorry," my sister said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "We're keeping this just for close family." The words cut deeper than any silence. Close family. I froze, my shoes planted on the polished floor. Around me, cousins and distant relatives, people I hadn't spoken to in years, were ushered into the group photo. And me, her brother? I was asked to step aside. So I did. I stepped back, returned to my chair by the kitchen doors, and listened to the sound of the camera shutter clicking like a gavel, sealing the verdict of where I stood in my own family. By the time dessert was served, my chest felt like it had been hollowed out. A 3-tiered cake appeared at the head table, covered in white frosting and delicate sugar flowers. Guests cheered as my sister and her new husband cut the first slice together, smearing a bit on each other's faces while cameras flashed. I watched from the shadows, my chair squeaking every time I shifted. No one offered me cake. No one even glanced in my direction. The music picked up, couples spilling onto the dance floor. My parents swayed with Brooke's parents, laughing like they were old friends. My cousins formed a circle, cheering and clapping as two of them tried to outdo each other with goofy moves. I sat there, still, the hum of the kitchen door slamming open and shut drowning out the music meant to make me feel part of the night. At one point, my aunt passed by carrying her shoes in her hand, her cheeks flushed with wine. She spotted me, did a double take, and frowned. "Why are you sitting back here?" she asked. I forced a smile. "Because that's where they put me." Her brow furrowed, like she wanted to say something else, but then her eyes darted toward the dance floor where the bride was twirling. She sighed, muttered, "Well, don't take it personally," and walked away. Don't take it personally. As if being shoved next to the kitchen doors on my own sister's wedding day was just a clerical error. The hours dragged. My phone buzzed with another text, this time from my dad. "Be a grown-up about this. Don't ruin your sister's night." I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Ruin her night? I hadn't said a word. I hadn't caused a scene. All I'd done was exist quietly in the place they assigned me, and somehow that was still too much. Finally, the DJ's voice boomed again. "Time for the family toast. Everyone raise your glasses." I looked down at the empty space beside me where a glass should have been. My throat tightened, but I stood anyway, folding my hands in front of me. Across the room, my sister beamed as people surrounded her with champagne flutes. My parents leaned in close, arms around her and the groom. And me. I stood alone by the kitchen doors, watching them toast to family. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to sit quietly anymore. The clinking of glasses echoed through the hall, laughter spilling over like champagne foam. I stayed rooted in my chair, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. My sister leaned against her new husband, glowing under the spotlight. My parents hovered proudly at her side. Everyone else basked in the warmth of belonging. Except me. Then the waiter appeared, same one who'd brought me my cold plate earlier. He held a small black folder in his hand, the kind that carried bills. His eyes scanned the room before they landed on me. "Sir," he said quietly, "the final payment is due for the event. Should I use the card on file?" My stomach dropped. Of course. The deposit. My card. The chatter around the head table hushed as eyes shifted toward me. My brother-in-law smirked, raising his glass. "He's got it," he said casually, as though I were nothing more than the hired help covering the check. The room rippled with awkward laughter. I stared at the waiter, then at the crowd of faces turned in my direction. My palms stopped sweating. My chest stopped burning. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. "No," I said, my voice steady. "That's not my table." The silence was instant, sharp. Even the DJ's music seemed to fade. "What?" my mother asked, her voice cutting through the air like glass. I stood slowly, the metal legs of my chair screeching against the floor. I was told this table was for family only. And since I wasn't welcome at it, I won't be paying for it. A few gasps. My dad straightened in his chair, face red. My sister's smile faltered, confusion flashing across her face. My brother-in-law set down his glass, suddenly less sure of himself. The waiter looked frozen, bill still in his hands. "Sir, You made the reservation. I did, I said evenly. And I paid the deposit. But I didn't eat their food. I didn't drink their champagne. I wasn't part of their family tonight. So no, I won't be paying their bill. For the first time all evening, every single eye in the room was on me. And I didn't look away. The silence after my words felt heavier than the chandeliers above us. Guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, the tension thick enough to choke on. My mom was the first to recover. She forced a tight smile and said through clenched teeth, "Eli, don't be dramatic. Sit down. We'll handle it later." I didn't move. Later. I've been sitting later my whole life. Tonight, I finally got the message loud and clear. A few relatives whispered, heads turning between me and the head table like they were watching a car crash in slow motion. My dad slammed his palm against the table. "Enough. This is your sister's wedding, not your stage." That struck something in me. I stepped forward, my voice rising for the first time. "You made it my stage the moment you shoved me into the hallway like garbage. The moment you told me I wasn't family enough to sit with you. Don't act surprised now that I'm done playing along." Gasps spread across the room. My sister's face flushed, anger flashing in her eyes. "Why are you making this about you?" she snapped. "This is the happiest day of my life." I let out a bitter laugh. "And you couldn't even give me a chair at the back of the room? You couldn't even look me in the eye." The groom's father, who had been quiet all night, suddenly stood. His voice was low but carried across the room. "You invited your brother to sit by the kitchen? On his own." His disgust was palpable. Murmurs erupted. A few guests stared at my parents, waiting for them to explain. My mom raised her hands, her voice shrill now. "He's exaggerating. He's always been sensitive. We didn't mean anything by it." But I cut her off. "You meant exactly what you did. And for once, I'm not swallowing it." The waiter still stood there awkwardly with the bill. My brother-in-law tried to laugh it off, muttering, "Come on, man, it was a joke." I turned to him, my voice cold. "Family isn't a joke. And neither am I." For the first time all night, he didn't have a smirk to hide behind. The room buzzed with whispers, the kind that cut sharper than shouting. Some guests stared at their plates, others openly watched like this was the real entertainment of the evening. My aunt spoke up from one of the side tables, her voice trembling. "He's not exaggerating. I saw him by the kitchen all night. Alone." A ripple of agreement followed. A cousin muttered, "I thought it was weird." Someone else said, "That's cruel." Suddenly, the spotlight shifted, not on me, but on my parents, my sister, and her new husband. My dad's jaw tightened. "This is a misunderstanding. We didn't mean to." "Stop lying," I snapped. My voice cracked through the room like a whip. "You meant every bit of it. You always have. I'm good enough to pay your bills, to fix your problems, to show up when you need me. But when it comes to being seen, being treated like I matter, I'm shoved into the hallway." My mom reached across the table, her voice breaking into that syrupy tone she used when cornered. "Sweetheart, please. You're making us look bad." I laughed, short, bitter, and sharp. "You did that all on your own." The groom's father cleared his throat again, louder this time. His face was stone. "If this is how you treat your son, I don't know what kind of family my daughter just married into." His words landed like a blow, and the room fell silent again. My sister's face drained of color. She shot me a glare that could have cut glass, but she didn't say a word. For once, she had no defense. The waiter, still clutching the black folder, looked at me nervously. I turned to him and said calmly, "Bring it to the head table. They'll figure it out." He nodded quickly and walked away, leaving the bill in front of the people who had expected me to cover it. As he did, I straightened my jacket, picked up my gift bag from the floor, and looked at the room one last time. "Enjoy the rest of your night," I said quietly, but the words carried. "I'm done playing the outsider in my own family." And with that, I walked toward the exit. The night air hit me like a shock when I stepped outside. The music from the reception hall still pulsed faintly through the walls, muffled cheers and laughter spilling into the dark, but out here it felt miles away. I loosened my tie, my heart pounding in a rhythm that wasn't fear anymore, it was release. For the first time all night, I could breathe. Behind me, the glass doors stayed shut. No one rushed after me. No one called my name. I stood there a long moment, half expecting my mom to send another text, my dad to bark an order, or even my sister to throw one last dagger disguised as a smile. But nothing came. I walked across the empty parking lot, my footsteps echoing louder than the DJ's bass line. The gift bag swung at my side, suddenly meaningless. Halfway to my car, I stopped, set it gently on the curb, and left it there. They didn't want me at their table. They didn't want me in their photos. They didn't want me in their version of family. So they wouldn't get my gift, either. As I drove away, the venue lights shrank in my rearview mirror until they disappeared completely. The anger still burned, yes, but under it, something else stirred. A strange kind of peace. Because in that moment, I realized I hadn't lost anything. They had. They lost the one person who showed up even when uninvited, who gave even when unthanked, who cared even when ignored. And I was done offering myself to people who only saw me as useful, never as worthy. That night, sitting alone in my quiet apartment, I thought about the hallway chair, the wobbling metal legs, the chipped paint on the walls, the sting of being shoved aside. And then I smiled. Because that chair had given me something no table ever had. Clarity. Sometimes, being seated in the hallway isn't punishment. It's the door finally opening to a different kind of life, one where you don't wait for a seat at someone else's table. You build your own.